So, hi, my name's Genevieve, and I'm the moderator for this session. And this is my first time at hosting Niagara Leadership Summit for Women. I'm so excited to be here. So I have to begin with the land acknowledgement. So we begin this summit by acknowledging the land on which we live and work is traditional territory by the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the treaties and in the land protected by the Dishwith Wampum. Today, this gathering places home to First Nations and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging this reminds us our great standard of living is directly related to resources and of Indigenous people. So let me quickly tell you about the W. So the YWCA is a local organization that stands for gender equality and gives a voice to those who are marginalized in our community. The Y offers emergency shelters and 3 stages of transitional housing for homeless women, men, and families to help get Alliance step by step to break the cycle of homelessness and poverty for good. So I'd like to take the opportunity to remind everyone that the Niagara Leadership Summit for Women is a virtual event and is designed to facilitate a safe and open space for all participants. By participating in the session, you are agreeing to follow our community guidelines, and you can find our guidelines on the left-hand side of the under the Community Guidelines tab. So I'm so excited to welcome Arti Freeman to the summit today. And I'm so happy to have all of you here. So, sorry. Arti is currently the manager of partnership investment at the Ontario Trillium Foundation, one of Canada's largest grant marketing foundations. In this role, she provides a strategic direction and oversight for the development of cross-sector partnerships and supports innovation and demonstrates the impact across the nonprofit sector. And before joining the OTF in 2003, Arti led the training and consulting offerings at the Center for Community Leadership at the Niagara College, where she concurrently served as a consultant for Niagara's nonprofit sector. Arti has worked in the Philippines, India, Belgium, and South Africa. So without further ado, I will allow Arti to take over, and I'm so excited for her presentation, and I'm sure you are.
Great, thank you, Genevieve. So good morning, everyone. As Genevieve mentioned, my name is Arti Freeman. And, for the last 25 years, I've had the opportunity to lead diverse teams, develop new programs, and collaborate with community leaders from multiple sectors on a global and local level. So I'm really honored that you've joined me today in this virtual summit as I shared insights that have helped me become more effective as a leader. So today, I will share a personal journey that has inspired me to lead with courage, compassion, and curiosity. Now, before we get started, I just want to check if everyone can hear me, if the sound is okay. If you could just type in the chat if the sound is okay. Great, thank you for the feedback, appreciate it. Awesome, so I'm gonna share my screen. If you just give me one moment. Perfect. So as I mentioned, today I will share a personal journey that has inspired me to lead with courage, compassion, and curiosity. So in 1994, I was leading a national youth-led NGO in the Philippines. Many of you may be familiar with NGOs. These are independent, non-governmental organizations with a social purpose. Part of my role as national president was to develop sustainable partnerships for our programs and operations. So I had approached Unilever's HR department. The head of HR at the time was a man named David Pierce, and that's his picture up on the screen. So I had presented our sponsorship proposal and mentioned that I would follow up after they've had time to think about it. So a couple of weeks went by and I decided I was going to follow up on the proposal, but they were still thinking about it. So I decided to put the pressure on, and I told them that we've also submitted the same proposal to their competitors, Procter and Gamble, who also indicated interest. I then said the first one that responds will get the major sponsor designation. The truth is, while I did submit the proposal to Procter and Gamble, I never actually heard back. There was no indication of interest on their end as far as I knew. Another couple of weeks went by and we were nearing the launch of the program, like we were months into launching the program. So by this time, I was making weekly calls to Unilever to see where they were at with their decision. And I kept reminding David that their competitor was very interested in being the major sponsor. During what would be one of my last calls, David basically called me on my bullcrap. And in a very firm tone, he said, let's face it, if Procter and Gamble was interested, you wouldn't be phoning me every week. And the phone went silent. Listen, leadership is not about a position or title. It has no age, no gender, no fancy education. Leadership is not a noun, it is a verb. I love this quote by John Maxwell. As you note from my story, I had the position, but if you ask me, I didn't demonstrate effective leadership throughout the interaction. The truth is, everyone has the capacity for leadership at some level, and there are multiple ways to define leadership. So today, I'm going to speak to you about the 3 C's of leadership: courage, compassion, and curiosity. Developing these 3 behaviors has transformed how I lead and has enabled me to rise as a leader. So these competencies are even more relevant, in the season of the pandemic and the worldwide movement to address systemic anti-Black racism, where there is a need for increased understanding, the ability to have difficult conversations, and the capacity to reimagine the future. So although I'm going to speak to them separately, the 3 behaviors are really interlinked. Courage is a key to compassion. Curiosity takes courage. If someone, for example, on your team has a behavior that is negatively impacting their work or reputation, you need courage to be honest about the behavior. You need compassion to help them grow, and curiosity to understand how best to address the problem. So the 3 often work together, resulting in more effective leadership. So I'm going to move on to the first, courage. It's taken me a long time to learn the importance of leading with courage, because courage requires that we overcome fear. Now, fear shows up in all kinds of ways: self-doubt, indecision, not engaging in necessary conflict and dialogue, just going along with the crowd. And this is behavior that keeps us inside our comfort zone, protected, like behind a shield, with our head basically hidden in the sand. So there are many ways in which we need to lead with courage. So I've listed a few here. Courage to speak up, courage to have difficult conversations, courage to ask for help, to admit mistakes, to fail forward, to embrace diversity. So these are just a few things. I'm sure there are others that come to your mind. We may be more comfortable in some of these areas than others. It took a lot of practice and getting past my discomfort to speak up and be honest, and brave enough to be upfront and straight with people. In the culture I grew up with, people just aren't straight. No one says no to your face or speaks truth to power. You've probably interacted with some people. When they say no, it means yes, yes means no. It's very confusing. So it was one of the most difficult things I have had to learn. And at the same time, the most rewarding. So being authentic and honest leads to trust. And if people don't trust you, then they won't listen to you. Some time ago, I was leading, the team I was leading ran into a very challenging conversation. There was a decision to be made, and one half of the team was against engaging in a specific activity, and the other half thought it was critical for us to do so. I mean, I was one of the people on the team who thought we absolutely needed to engage in this activity. For weeks, the team argued, and it led to tense moments. And people started talking over each other. The discussions were just filled with assumptions about why some people didn't want to engage in the activity. And it was slowly becoming an us versus them. After one of these interactions, I quickly realized that the issue could actually break this team. In fact, I was already noticing mistrust towards me. As I reflected on this, I realized that, what I was doing was wrong. I needed to take time to listen, to understand viewpoints of others, to test my own assumptions and encourage the team to do the same. So I approached the team, and the first thing I did was apologize for not creating a safe space where we can hear and understand each other. I let everyone know that I really wanted to understand the issue and work with them to forge a path forward. And I specifically asked for their ideas on how we can have this conversation. And I asked for their support to start over. Basically, I asked for a reset. Thankfully, they gave me another chance. So the second time around, everyone was encouraged to listen to each other. The mistrust I was beginning to feel completely disappeared. The team worked collaboratively on a solution, which ended up in the design of a process that was far better than the one we originally had. The point is, we all make mistakes. The key is to fail often and bounce forward. Admit it, learn from it, and use your learning to fail forward. It takes courage to be authentic and ask for help or admit mistakes because that involves vulnerability, and vulnerability is often uncomfortable. But the more real and authentic you can be, the more trust you can build with others. And the more trust you build, the more influence you can have as a leader. You also develop, yours and your team's capacity to hold each other accountable and move towards collaboration despite their position or rank because they are encouraged to have difficult conversations. So courage enables voices to be heard. It enables different ideas to be tabled. And it actually levels the playing field so that everyone can participate. So, but before I move on from courage, I'd like to take a quick poll on which areas you feel you need more courage in. Genevieve, do we have the poll?
The poll's just on the right side of the screen, yes.
So we're just waiting to see what is transpiring from the poll. All right, so maybe let's just go to the chat function because I don't see the poll, and Genevieve just texted that she's still trying to sort out the poll. If how about we do this? If everyone could just put in the chat which area you feel like, you know, we could work on to have more courage in. Great. Sabri said difficult conversations for sure. Anyone else? Oh, someone's asking, so Rachel, your questions, do we need to answer all three? You mean all three polls? I think it's just the first poll. Yeah, difficult conversations, speaking up. Difficult conversations. Failing forward, says Angie, speaking up for myself, difficult conversations. Yeah, Bernie, thanks for just finishing it. For some reason, we're not seeing it on the feed, and I'm not sure why. Like I said, Genevieve might have some ideas. Yeah, asking for help. So I think, you know, what maybe we'll do is there's a thing I like to do that's called feed forward, which is we ask help from our peers. So we're among friends, and so let's deal with just one of them, because difficult conversations came up quite a bit. And what feed forward does, you know, instead of feedback where you reflect on, oh, what kind of advice can someone give me based on previous behavior, feed forward actually gives you advice proactively so that you can advance a behavior you want to advance. So what feed forward does is asks all our peers and our friends for one or two ideas on how to do behavior X. So in this case, what I'd like us to do is if everyone could just provide one suggestion on how you feel, like how to have difficult conversation. How do you have the courage to have difficult conversations? So I'm going to start verbally by saying, you know, for me, what I do is I first reflect and I write down the conversation I want to have, like really sticking to the issue and boiling it down, distilling it down for myself so that I understand what that might be. And then when I have the conversation, I'm already prepared in my mind to do that. So do others have other suggestions? If you could put it on the screen, that'd be great, like on the chat. Right, so Rachel said, realize how much it's going to help the person once they know. Sometimes people don't even realize how their actions are affecting others. So that's great. It's also so knowing for yourself how much it's going to help. So remove the personal, says Jackie. Great suggestion as well. Other suggestions? Echo what Arti said, do your homework, understand your position, concerns, your ideas, and jump in, ask for scheduled time to discuss the difficult issue at hand. So Rebecca, thank you for that. Great suggestions. Ask the other party whether they find the subject difficult to talk about as well. So that's from Colleen, thank you for that. And Jocelyn, manage our own emotions effectively before engaging in difficult conversations. Great tip. Get your ego out of the way, Bree, that's excellent. Ego really needs to be out of the way to have that conversation. And Jane says, focus on facts rather than emotions. Okay, these suggestions are really great. Stacy, make sure you have all the information before going in, no assumptions. Judy agrees about writing the thoughts down and potential script for the conversation and talk about it confidentially with a work colleague. That's awesome, I do that as well. Plan a conversation, control the emotion, and be empathetic. Great feedback. So thank you all for that. I'm gonna, keep those in mind. Like, feel free to take those ideas. Those are really great. I'm gonna take some of those myself as we move, as I move forward. When you're thinking about having these conversations, especially around the ego and the emotion, keeping that out of the way, so taking out the personal. Marley, by not putting someone on the defensive, consider their perspective first. That's a really good point. You know, you could always ask them, how did you feel about such and such? And choose the right time. Timing, very important again. So thank you for all those things. I mean, feel free to keep it coming. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but thank you very much for all that. So the other big area of courage is the courage to believe in yourself. Now, I've separated this out because it was an important learning for me. In my mid-20s, I heard a quote, but didn't fully understand it until sometime later. And the quote is by Mahatma Gandhi, which says, "Man is in the center of a circle without a circumference, except the one he creates for himself." So there are no real boundaries around us except what we place on ourselves. So these boundaries constitute our values, our beliefs, our attitudes, and our behaviors. So our values are what I call I ams. It's what's in us. So for example, no one can convince me that I'm dishonest when I truly know that I'm honest. That's my value. Our beliefs are what I call you ares. So we are often programmed with these beliefs. If someone says you are stupid, you are ugly your whole life, there's a high chance you're going to start believing that. The good news is that we can deprogram beliefs. Midway through my career, I worked for someone whose constant control and intimidation impacted me, and I ended up losing confidence in my skills and abilities in a matter of months. This was so evident to people around me who kept telling me I had changed and asked what was wrong. You know, I'm very grateful for these women because they helped me see what was happening and that I needed to stand up, be courageous, and believe in myself again. The point being is that people around you can say things, but only you can decide what you believe about yourself. You know, Thomas Edison, he failed 1,000 times before he made the light bulb. But he said, I didn't fail. I just know 1,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. So our attitudes matter. You know, our attitudes reflect our opinion of ourselves or how we feel about others. Our beliefs influences our attitudes, which then influences how we behave. So if I believe my ideas were dumb, I might go around with a why bother attitude and completely disengage and not contribute my ideas anywhere. When Edison failed, he believed he was one step closer to making the light bulb. So his attitude influenced his behavior, and he called his invention the light bulb with 1,000 steps. Sometime in my career, I pursued a leadership position that was of great interest to me. My efforts to attain the role escaped me and left me very frustrated. I mentioned my frustration to another woman in leadership. She looked at me and said, you know, you don't need anyone's permission to lead. That moment shifted my beliefs and attitudes so immensely that I started to lead where I could and took more responsibility in areas that were within my influence. So the next time the opportunity presented itself, my beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors were so aligned that with the role, I got the job. It all starts with courage to believe in yourself, even when others don't. So compassion. Before we move on to this topic, let's take another quick poll. So that's the second poll on your screen. How would you best describe compassion? Great. So I'm seeing some things come through the poll. Feeling someone else's emotions, contributing to the well-being of others, feeling sympathy and sorrow has some, being nice and showing kindness. I'm not sure you can see this on your screen, but I can see it through a link. So, the top that people have identified is contributing to the well-being of others, followed by feeling someone else's emotions. So, all the answers are true. We need kindness, empathy, sympathy to have compassion. But you are right. We cannot have compassion without taking proactive action to alleviate the plight and support and support the well-being of others. So, contributing to the well-being of others is really key in ensuring that we have compassion. So if someone tells you they're overwhelmed with work and you say, I'm so sorry to hear that, you're coming short of compassion, because compassion would say, how might I support you? What can I take off your plate? There is an action to it and it can be learned. I'm so glad for that, because compassion did not come naturally to me. When I was much younger, I seemed indifferent to the people around me. And throughout the years, I've learned that leadership is not about me. It is about helping everyone around me succeed and be the best they can be. I remember the first time I became aware of my lack of compassion. Someone I was working with, was not able to submit a report on time and had expressed that her grandmom had just passed away. Instead of saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, I started by saying, okay, let's set a new deadline. I may have not been upset about the deadline being missed, but I didn't show any care about her loss. Neither did I ask, what would be helpful for her at that time. Perhaps, getting someone else to do the report is what she needed. It was as if I didn't even hear that part. How many of you have sent an email or communication that was meant to be for your manager or CEO, and you only ended up copying someone else in that email by mistake? How did your manager react? Like, how would you react if someone in your team did that? Sometimes we're so set on our goals that we forget to stop, listen, and show kindness. I've reported to many different people, and upon reflection, I see that I have excelled and thrived and was more motivated under leaders that demonstrated great compassion. In 1986, Lou Holtz was hired as the head football coach of the then struggling Notre Dame Fighting Irish football team and led them to national champions by 1988. Lou Holtz lives by 3 rules only, which he attributes to his success in his personal life and his work. So this is advice he gives to all leaders. Do what's right, do the best you can, and show people you care. Do what's right. We have the ability to choose to do what's right and avoid what's wrong. We need courage to do this. We have the choice to speak up even when it's not popular, to put people before profit, to maintain integrity in the midst of peer pressure. Do the best you can. Not everyone can be a CEO or a great world leader, but you can do everything to the best of your ability. So compare yourself to no one except your best potential. Maya Angelou puts it like this: do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Show people you care. Reach out to people around you, encourage someone, share a kind word, be curious about other people, their goals, their hobbies, their family. Say thank you. I have a box of thank you cards on my desk and I use it often. It is important to show you care, like in an authentic and helpful manner. So when you say thanks, be specific. For example, thank you for getting that report done in such short notice. If you study the habits of successful leaders time and time again, you will find examples of CEOs and others who make gratitude a regular, if not a daily habit. So Lou Holtz says he can get by with only 3 rules because people have 3 basic questions. 3 basic questions are, can I trust you? Are you committed? And do you care about me? Can I trust you? Trust is critical to any relationship, and we gain trust by doing what's right. Are you committed? So are you committed to your goals, to excellence, to your team, to those you serve? Are you committed to the people around you? We show commitment when we do everything to the best of our ability. Do you care about me? Do you care about me as a person? Do you care about my motivations and contributions? If your product or service doesn't help me, does it matter to you? Are you enabling your team to succeed? Are you sharing credit? Are your clients getting what they need from your product or service? According to Lou Holtz, caring about people is not making their life easy. Caring about people is not being their friend. Caring about people proactively is helping other people succeed. I heard Lou Holtz speak in my first year of university. His words resonated with me then, and I tried to apply them. But honestly, it was only when I learned to genuinely be compassionate towards others that I really understood what he meant. So we move on to curiosity. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful gift, that gift would be curiosity. Curiosity is the ability to seek and acquire new knowledge, skills, and ways of understanding the world and how things work. It has led to almost all the innovations of our time. Curiosity is in our nature. Just look at children. They constantly ask why. Being curious is a natural instinct, and it deepens our understanding about our environment and helps us discover what is yet unknown to us. I remember being a naturally curious child. I would buy these huge books called Tell Me Why. I'm not sure if anyone else has heard of these books. But if I couldn't find the answers there, I would scrummage through the encyclopedia. Somewhere along the line, I lost my curiosity. I think I was programmed not to be curious. When I would ask too many questions, I was told to stop asking why, or given the old saying, curiosity killed the cat, which I don't believe, by the way. Schools, or at least the school I was in, trained me to spew out the right answer instead of having an inquisitive mind. Jumping to conclusions, judgment, and solutions became my new norm. I had all the answers and I had plenty of it. During meetings, I'd actually wait for the time to come to discuss solutions. I didn't need to hear any more about the problem. I knew the problem and I had ideas on how we're to solve it. If someone presented an idea and I didn't agree with it, instead of trying to understand what they were saying, I just wait for it to blow over and move on. If I was developing a program, I would do it without consulting the end users, not gathering input from where it mattered most. The lack of curiosity cost me many missed opportunities and mediocre results. So I'm just really glad, that in early days, in my early 20s, I had a lot of these experiences by working with NGOs and volunteering. And as I was moving on in my career, it got me to realize a lot of these things. And so I had to learn to re-engage my curiosity by doing 2 things. The first is asking people to tell me more. When I am unclear or unsure of someone's ideas, these 3 powerful words help me really understand and get clarity on the subject. The question also helps the person you're talking with be more aware of their beliefs and helps them illuminate areas that they may have not considered. So, I've often caught myself about to dismiss an idea. And when I stopped myself to say, tell me more, I ended up making better decisions. For instance, in planning a team event, I had proposed we schedule meetings with potential partners and explore areas where we can work together. Someone suggested, we can meet these people anytime, and we should really use the time to learn about what's happening in the field. I'm so glad I said, tell me more. We ended up with such a dynamic team learning session that helped us understand gaps and opportunities, how we might add value to the work, and it actually turned into new partnerships that we hadn't even thought of. The second thing I've learned to ask is questions, and lots of it. Questions like, what's the problem we're solving for? Why is this a problem? How does it happen? How does it impact us? How might we address the issue? What would it take for us to alleviate this problem? How would addressing this problem benefit us? What have we learned from similar problems? So really, I ask, how might we, ... What would it take to do ... But, the thing to understand is, questions are only one part of the equation. You're probably already thinking this. They don't work if we're not listening in an authentic, genuine, and curious way. Listening takes focus. So if we're truly listening, we're seeking to understand. So don't feel compelled to respond as soon as someone stops talking. Those few moments of silence are often when the real discovery and deep thinking happen. So it's learning to hold the space. I'm still working on doing this better. It's so easy to forget that it really requires being mindful. So just for fun, let's do the third poll. Who is your favorite fictional character that inspires curiosity? I see some people already beginning to fill out the poll. Great. So it's really interesting. Alice in Wonderland gets the most votes, but the truth is that all these characters really inspire curiosity. By the way, if you didn't see your fictional character, feel free to use the chat function to to write down which fictional character. Oh, Moana, someone said for sure. That's awesome, right? Moana. If you've got other, Marley said Moana. If you have other ideas or other fictional characters that inspire curiosity, feel free to put that in the chat as well. So fictional characters can teach us a lot, but there are real women who lead with courage, compassion, and curiosity. You may have noticed that my examples and quotes were mostly from men. I have to admit, it was difficult finding examples from women that were part of my story, which is really telling and really helps us know why we really need what we're doing today and why we need women leaders around us. I do want to point out, however, that there are many incredible women that are well known for leading with courage, compassion, and curiosity. So here's a few of them. Indra Nooyi. She became Pepsi-Cola's 5th CEO in 2006, where she served as CEO until 2018. Indra was known for her genuine, heart-centered leadership. She consistently ranked among the world's 100 most powerful women. She was ranked second most powerful woman on the Forbes list in 2013 and 2017. And again, it was because of that heart-centered leadership that she's known for. Jacinta Ardern, PM of Prime Minister of New Zealand. She's lauded for her response to the coronavirus crisis, which some say has been a masterclass in leadership. Swift action, compassion, and trust, those are landmarks of her leadership. Malala Yousafzai. So many of you know Malala's story. The Taliban had taken over her village in Pakistan when she was 11 and basically said girls could no longer go to school. Now, Malala displayed admirable courage by speaking out on the rights of girls to learn when she was 12. So her curiosity to learn, nearly cost her life as she was shot for speaking out. She established the Malala Fund, basically a charity dedicated to giving every girl an opportunity to achieve the future she chooses. In 2014, she became the youngest ever Nobel laureate. Malala achieved her dreams to learn and graduate this year from Oxford University, which is such an incredible story. I mean, I encourage all of us here today, as we have great role models to look up to. I mean, I've put familiar faces on the slide, but there's so many women that I look up to, including my grandmother. She showed great courage in the midst of adversity. She was extremely compassionate and was always curious. As we learn from the women around us and apply what we learn, all of us, and I mean all of us, can lead with more courage, more compassion, and more curiosity. Someone commented on Jacinta, perfection. Sherlock Holmes, another character. I'm just checking the chat. Greta Thunberg, again, great leader, great woman leader. So feel free to, if you've got women leaders that you know of. I was also trying to think of Canadian women leader that leads with courage, compassion, and curiosity that would have been well known to everyone. If someone has, someone in mind, please feel free to put that in the chat as well. Yeah, Rachel says Malala is amazing. So these are, again, just great examples for us. So I'd like to leave you with 3 thoughts. The first is leadership is not a position or title, it's a verb. You don't need anyone's permission to lead. The second is that everyone has the capacity for leadership, and I mean everyone. The third is while there are many definitions of leadership, I have learned to transform my leadership through courage, compassion, and curiosity. In case you're wondering, Unilever sponsored our event. David had the courage to call me on my behavior, but he also demonstrated great compassion and curiosity. In fact, I connected with David a few months ago to thank him for the very important lesson. And he responded with such gratitude. He reinforced our common ground, and he proceeded to share humbling experiences he has had and really wished me luck on this presentation. He's actually waiting to hear how it went. And with that, I just want to really say thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions that you have. Oh, great. Some other folks have put in different people that lead with courage, compassion, and curiosity. So thank you for that. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. You know what's interesting is what many put are a lot of politicians, whether it's in Canada or abroad. And I'm really, it's really interesting to know that we've got women politicians in leadership that display courage, compassion, and curiosity. So Bree has asked, how do you balance leadership and friendship? If you're a leader to people who are also your friends, this is a really, really excellent question. I have found that the relationship does change. So, there are times when you are amongst peers and you have conversations with your peers that you can no longer have when you are, let's just say, if you become a director of that department, or you're managing that person, the relationship does change. The friendship doesn't go away. You can still have the same friendship, have the same rapport, but you will find natural evolution would be that they would no longer say things to you that they may tell their peers. And if that doesn't happen, you need to make sure that happens, because the relationship needs to be, it's a very, very different relationship. So if others have experience on how that relationship has shifted, please feel free to put it in the chat as well. Yes, Debbie Zimmerman. Thank you, Bernie, for that comment about someone who leads with compassion, courage, and curiosity. Any other questions? Listen, feel free to ask. I'll wait a few more minutes or so for questions. If you don't have some now, my email is on the slide. Feel free to connect with me anytime, and I'd be happy to touch base. So someone has asked on the side, it's coming through the chat, how can we remember to show curiosity in a stressful situation? And, that's, again, it's really very difficult to do. I think, one of the things I've had to learn is really to be mindful. And what happens in a stressful situation is basically your amygdala, which is the one that supports our emotional response, gets hijacked. And so counting to 10, calming down, breathing, like doing whatever you can to, to be able to deal with a stressful situation so that you can still show curiosity. And curiosity, just remembering to ask questions, even if you just remember, tell me more, that would enable the person to explain a bit more and will enable you to hear it. I'm sure others who are on this who are on this session today actually have have specific ideas on how to do this in stressful situations. Again, feel free to share ideas with each other. So Marley says, what is a good way to deal with a bully? Oh, again, interesting. We've all had, I'm assuming, Marley, you're talking about bullies at work. We've all had those situations. Very, very difficult. I actually, the best way to deal with a bully is by having that difficult conversation with them. So a great, Bernie said, stand up to them. And he says, I wouldn't dare to suggest it's easy. That's true. It's being able to have that difficult conversation. So when a bully intimidates you or makes you do something in your job that you're not comfortable with, take the time to think through, write it down, speak to a colleague, like all those, all the suggestions that came earlier, to do those things and speak to the bully straight up and address the behavior. Marley says, yes, agreeing with Bernie. Jackie, you said leadership and friendship is a good place to practice difficult conversations. Absolutely. And again, just remember the relationship changes. And I've had this time and time again when you're in a friendship position and suddenly you become that person's manager. it is difficult, but it has to be done. Otherwise, otherwise you're not helping the other person grow, and you're not helping yourself grow. Marley. Marley asked, what if the bully is the one that hired you? Okay, this is really difficult, even for me, to respond to how you would handle the situation. I feel for you, Marley. I think that there might be ways, to do this. I don't know if I would still speak to them. That's the first recourse. And if that doesn't work, usually you would speak to someone, someone in HR, but I'm not an employment lawyer, or I'm not someone in HR. HR is not my background. But if someone on this chat is, or, Marley, I encourage you offline to speak to someone that is, that has a very strong HR background. Great, and Bree also had another idea. Okay, so one, I just want to say thank you for, really being open, for being transparent, especially in these chats, for feeling safe enough to be able to post a lot of your thoughts and suggestions and questions. I really, really value it and appreciate it. It takes a lot of vulnerability and courage to do that. And from what I can see, a lot of you have displayed that even in today's session. So I just want to say I'm very, very grateful, and thank you very much for your time today.
Arti, thank you so much for your presentation. I think I speak for all of us when I say you've really inspired us and encouraged us to become our best selves. And thank you everyone so much for attending. I'm sure we have all got great information on this. I believe this is a session. After this will be a short break. So, get out, stretch your legs, grab a cup of coffee. Do feel free to connect on our platform and visit our virtual booth, and definitely post about us using our hashtag NLW 2020. You might be featured, and thank you all so much for attending.